Well, welcome back, you fantastic listeners, to the Aviation Business Podcast, where we have been celebrating our 3-year podcast anniversary, where we've been doing this podcast every single week for the last 3 years, starting about June 4th of 2018. So in this celebratory season, as we're calling it, we've been revisiting some of the more listened to or key concepts from our early episodes that maybe we're a little bit shorter or just haven't been revisited in a while. And so this week we are looking at episode 24, where we talked about leading yourself first. And we talk about a number of topics on this particular podcast: leadership, business development, and related items. And really, as we talk about leadership as a key concept in growing our business, we have to be able to lead ourselves in order to lead other people. And so if we're going to keep going forward, having leadership discussions, we've got to be able to lead ourselves well. You can't take somebody somewhere you haven't been, at least in a knowledgeable and wise way. So with that, we are going to go back to episode 24. There's some great quotes, some good information in a short episode here. So episode 24, here you are.
The Greek philosopher Plato said, "The first and best victory is to conquer self." Plato said this because he knew that if you're not able to lead yourself, you're not going to be able to lead others well. So a foundational key to leadership of others is the ability to lead yourself. The many activities and frantic pace of life too often cause us to put the needs of others before our own. However, that sets us up for an eventual crash or setback in our life and career. When we're not taking care of ourselves, we're going to start giving way in all the areas of life, and that can lead to severe consequences. Leadership guru John Maxwell said, "Self-leadership is the greatest leadership challenge." Now, self-leadership is a broad topic, one that is the subject of a number of books, articles, and podcasts, so I'm only going to address a few key thoughts in this episode. So think of a wheel on a bicycle. The wheel has 6 spokes. If one of the spokes is broken, the wheel isn't going to roll very well. The travel is going to get bumpy. If it isn't addressed, it will eventually fail, and the entire wheel will fail. Certainly, if more than one spoke is broken, the wheel will fail and the bicycle will crash. Now, your life priorities may be a little different, but for many leaders, we have the following pillars or spokes in our life. That is our physical spoke. Are we healthy in shape? Our fiscal spoke or pillar. Our finances in order. Our mental and emotional pillar. How are we doing in those areas? Our spiritual pillar. A 2012 report by researchers from the University of Missouri indicated that better mental health is significantly related to increased spirituality. Then there's our relational pillars, our family, our friends, and then certainly there's our career. Those of us who are pilots know that we are constantly working to achieve situational awareness. Before flights, many pilots perform a pre-flight risk assessment to measure the various factors that might affect the flight, including weather, flight experience for the pilot's state of mind, etc. You can build a sense of personal situational awareness by giving yourself this simple assessment. Each one of these items have countless studies that correlate health and performance in life. So rate these 7 F's on a scale of 1 to 10, and feel free to adapt them to meet your own priorities. So first is faith, the second fitness, the third finances, fourth family, fifth fellowship, 6 fun, and 7 field or career. So number 1, how are you doing in your faith life? Are you spending time by praying or reading your Bible? How would you rate that on a scale of 1 to 10? Fitness, physically. Are you exercising regularly and eating well? How are you doing on a scale of 1 to 10? Finances. Are you saving, investing, and avoiding unnecessary debt? Where do you fall in that paradigm? Family. Are you spending quality time, both physically and mentally, with your loved ones? Fellowship. Are you spending quality time with quality friends who enrich you? Fun. Are you able to spend time enjoying life, doing your hobbies, laughing, etc.? How are you doing on a scale of 1 to 10? And finally, field, or your career. Do you have a clear vision and mission in your career? Are you setting and executing goals and developing people? So rate all those on a scale of 1 to 10, and then spend time evaluating which one of these pillars you need to be working on. This quick evaluation can serve as a course directional indicator, or CDI, as to where you need to prioritize spending time developing yourself. Picture it this way. There are 7 pillars holding up the foundation of a building. What happens when one of the pillars starts to give out? The integrity of the foundation of the entire structure is jeopardized and could collapse. So the same is true in our lives. There's been a story out there for some time about priorities that has been shared by a number of people in different settings. So I can't give credit to the originator, but I call it the parable of the big rocks. So a teacher walks into a classroom and sets a glass jar on the table. He silently places 2-inch rocks in the jar until no more can fit. He asks the class if the jar is full, and they agree it is. He says, "Really?" And he pulls out a pile of small pebbles, adding them to the jar, shaking it slightly until they fill the spaces between the rocks. He asks again, "Is the jar full?" They agree. So next, he adds a scoop of sand to the jar, filling the space between the pebbles, and asks the question again. This time, the class is divided, some feeling that the jar is obviously full, but others are wary of another trick. So he grabs a pitcher of water and then fills the jar to the brim, saying, "If this jar is your life, what does this experiment show you?" A bold student replies, "No matter how busy you think you are, you can always take on more." "Well, that is one view," the teacher replied. And then he looks out at the class, making eye contact with everyone, and says, "The rocks represent the big things in your life. What you will value at the end of your life, your family, your health, fulfilling your hopes and dreams. The pebbles are the other things in your life that give it meaning, like your job, your house, your hobbies, and your friendships. The sand and water represent the small stuff that fills our time, like busy work, watching TV, or running errands." So looking out at the class again, he asks, "Can you see what would happen if I started with the sand or the pebbles?" For many people, it is simply about creating awareness of their big rocks, their pillars, their priorities, and taking actions to address them, and then blocking specific time to work on each of the pillars that has a need. Then you must constantly monitor them on a regular basis, at least quarterly, if not monthly. When you're firing on all cylinders on the core pillars of your life, you are going to be better at your work, with your family, and your relationships, and all other areas of your life.
So take your leadership and your organization to a higher altitude by becoming a leader who leads himself or herself first. Well, here's your aviation fun fact for the day. And we're going to June 8th of 1988. I found this extremely interesting while looking through Wikipedia, and that was Nippon Airways announces that painting eyeballs on jets cut bird collisions by 20%. That seems extremely odd, and I'm not sure about the validity of those statistics, but that was the report. So Nippon Airways Company Limited, also known as ANA, is the largest airline in Japan by revenues and passenger numbers. It operates services to both domestic and international destinations normally, and has more than 20,000 employees as of March 2016. Those numbers could have obviously changed, but what an interesting statistic. Maybe we'll see a lot of airplanes flying around with eyeballs painted on them to reduce bird collisions. Well, that's your aviation fun fact for the day. Until next time, keep your wheels up and your attitude high.
Thanks for listening to the Aviation Business Podcast. If you found this episode of value, please share with someone who could benefit from its content. You can stay up to date by subscribing in iTunes or your podcast player of choice. This episode is brought to you by Aris Insurance Solutions, your flight plan for navigating the turbulence in aviation insurance. To find out more, go to arisinsurance.com. That's AERIS insurance.com.